Hey, how's it going? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and I have to confess, I was a big meanie. It was terrible. Actually, what happened was I had my first adult, as an adult. The last time I was in a chess tournament before 2 Tuesdays ago was when I was in grade 8, and I got knocked out in the first round by the guy who ended up winning that tournament. And I've never really been in any kind of competition since then, so maybe that's some of the weirdness that is detected here, I guess, in the show. But I played my first over the board set of matches in chess. It was a 2 consecutive Tuesday nights, 6 rounds total, 25-minute time format and 5 seconds of increment. And so I'm going to share a couple different games. One thing that was pretty funny is I ended up playing against my son, but the real star of the entire tournament, I'd have to say, has to be an 8-year-old little girl who, for privacy purposes, I'm going to hide her identity or whatever. But the thing that is mind blowing is I wrote down my moves, which I didn't have to because it was more casual this tournament. And I punched them into the analysis, and she got an 84 accuracy over the course of 42 moves. Absolutely crazy. So let's review that and see how it goes. I'll bring up the screen here and I'll scoot over. So this one I'm playing as white, and out comes NF3. Now this one might be, oh, actually I stand corrected. First I'm going to show you the other one who was against a grown-up, and this one I was mean to, but not quite as mean. So anyway, NF3, and then he starts to fianchetto on the king side, probably doing like a King's Indian sort of thing. I fianchetto as a King's Indian attacker ready. He brings out his knight. I bring out my bishop. He brings out his bishop. I bring this pawn out here because I wanted to avoid this move right here because I don't like it when it harasses my knight and blocks my bishop, especially with the knight already there. He does the next book move of castling. Then I go for sort of like a Queen's Gambit, Catalan sort of approach here. And he brings his knight out on the side. Now, they do say a knight on the rim is dim. The one problem, there are two problems with this. One is that I've already got this pawn right here, so that means the knight is not free to go there. So there's really only two other squares that the knight can go on his next move. He can either go here or the horsey can go over here. So I move my pawn right there to lock off that square. So that basically means that this knight has nowhere to go. So it's not a great start so far. But as far as the evaluation bar goes, you can see it's 0.32 pawns in my favor. So it's not that big of a deal. He brings this pawn out here, not really taking up much space. Interesting to see where that ends up going. I do the normal developing move, apparently the best move on the board, bring my knight out like this. And the idea being that I can control these two squares a little bit more with this pawn and knight combo. He brings, apparently that's the best move to bring this pawn out. There's no question that this is the next move that the computer is anticipating to happen, and I decide to castle, which is also the best move. He moves his rook over here, anticipating that there's going to be a fight on this file. So that's one thing that when you're getting started in chess, I think is a little bit confusing, is like, okay, well, there's nothing here, so why are you moving your rook there? It's basically looking way ahead to later in the game. So I bring my pawn out to take up more space. That also means that this move here is not really realistic. There's nothing that he can really put here. You know, maybe the bishop could have gone there, but that stops him in his tracks. He does the best move, as I was saying, of this pawn coming out here now that it's backed up by this pawn. And I ignore it. It says that I should have locked the position, but don't you worry, I'm going to do that in a second. The bishop comes out here to make it so that this knight is kind of frozen in its tracks, in the sense of, you know, if we do end up getting a fight right here, for example, if he pushes there, the knight isn't going to really be able to do anything about it, because if he moves, I'll be able to take the queen. So that's a pretty common motif. So he says, all right, let's quit the foreplay. Let's just get straight at her. And he threatens my bishop. Says, are you going to go over here and trap yourself, or are you willing to actually trade the knight? And that's why I just go ahead and trade my bishop for his knight. He takes back with the bishop. It's a little bit claustrophobic over here, as you can see, especially after I close the position. And this basically means that this knight is now free to go right here. But that's not a really great move. He does also have the extra space. Like, that was one benefit of moving this pawn over here, is now the knight has an extra spot to go. But things really aren't great. The main idea is I don't want his rooks or queen to really be able to get into the game. So that's why locking these pawns right here, strangling the position a little bit, is what I was up to. So he moves his knight over here, which is not so great because I can see that I can bring my pawn right out here to threaten it. And the bigger problem is he doesn't really have a good escape square. You know, he can head up here and then clog up his position even worse. He can go back to where he was, which a lot of people don't want to do. He can't go here because the queen controls that diagonal, and he also can't go here because of the queen, and he can't go here because of the queen either. And that's when the big blunder happens. So I take the advantage. This is let's see here. This is move 13. On move 13, I start getting this advantage here when I scoop up that knight. Now, of course, it's a little bit scary to be moving my queen over here when there's nothing to do over here. This whole side of the, oh, you can't see my cursor. My cursor's on his queen side here with all these pawns and all this firepower stuck over here. Like, it doesn't make any sense to attack over here, especially since the pawn structure on the king side is a little bit weak. So it makes way more sense to start going straight towards his king at this point in the game. Anyway, so he moves his bishop over here. With the benefit of foresight, I know that he's trying to make a battery here, but the math actually doesn't work out so well, as you'll see in a second. And so I disregard that and basically go, okay, what was going through my head at this point is that if the pawn is out there, then I can move my knight over here, and then I can bring this knight over here and then my queen over there, and then I can swing my knight over here in order to threaten this bishop and also this pawn that's just really loose over here. So sure enough, there's the battery. So he's got this bishop that is able to, you know, cause a little bit of nastiness or a little bit of a scare. But I've learned through my studies that there were very specific situations where that sort of battery is something you need to be concerned about, and this isn't one of them. So I continue with my plan, moving my knight over here, making this spot available, just basically clearing this out, and with also my intention was to bring this knight over here, but it says that I should have supported this pawn here because computers are weird. Anyway, so the bishop comes over here. You know, this is supposed to give you the willies because it's like, oh no, there's a piece that I can't really do anything about. He's anticipating that I'll take this way, and then he'll have a queen here. But as you can see, it's like, okay, well, where's the next bit of backup coming from? You know, is he hoping that this pawn will come here, and then maybe I'll take, and then he takes back, and then he goes over here, and then he has more support, and the queen's there forever. Like, if you think a few moves ahead, it doesn't really work. Anyway, so I move my knight out of the way so that my queen can basically get in on the action as well. He takes my bishop, and so I take back. Well, apparently that's the best engine move, and he moves this pawn over here, and I think that's to support moving right there if he wants, or something, or maybe just taking away this square from the knight. I'm not really clear. I don't always know what's going through my opponent's heads, but I am on the lookout for any nastiness. Now you see that the engine also says he should have opened up the position by taking up this pawn, and then I'd have a choice between, do I take back that way or that way? The best answer, as far as I see, would be that way, even though it still clogs the access of the queen to attack this pawn. The main thing is I wouldn't want to have this rook behind a pawn to have some freedom to head up that file. So I move this this rook over here. This was a fun one. So what I was up to here, I know that I wanted to move this pawn here to clear up some space to attack. But I saw that as soon as this pawn captures, this bishop will be staring right at my rook. And so this would be a prophylactic move, just basically something that improves the position and makes sure that I don't have to put out any fires while I've got some other fight that's seemingly more important later in the game. So this is the one that I was particularly proud of, moving that over here, even though you can see that the engine prefers that I do something else. Anyway, he moves up his pawn right here to threaten this one, and I think he's hoping that I'll take, but that doesn't make any sense. It just weakens my position. It says, hey, do you want to put your bishop right here and get like a pretty sweet diagonal up there? And I'm like, well, as a matter of fact, no, I don't. So that's why I put my knight over here to support this pawn, and even potentially take the pawn, because if takes and takes, I've got this beautiful pawn that would be ready to wreak some havoc up where the king is. So he does the best move and takes the pawn, and I do the not best move of taking the pawn. Apparently it wants me to move back over here, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Maybe it doesn't like the idea of takes. Yeah, I was running through, I did calculate this already myself, where if it was takes and then takes, then this queen goes here, but then I was planning on blocking with my knight, and I didn't see a whole lot of opportunity for him to mess things up. I'm already up a full piece, which you can see right here. I'm highlighting that knight that I scooped up over here would be to my advantage, so it'd be okay for me to bring my queen over here and take back. So he moves over here. It says it's all right. It says that the engine wants him to have actually taken that knight, and so I continue this attack, and this is the beginning of the end, more or less. You'll see that the actual evaluation hasn't changed too much here. It's 5.28 in my favor, so it means it's as if I have 5 extra pawns. And the benefit here is I'm targeting this bishop and this pawn, and even though it wanted me to move my knight over there first. So he ends up moving his queen over here to support this bishop, so I can't take it, but that's okay, because I do the best move to take that pawn, knowing that he's only got 2 squares he can go to. He can't go here, can't go here, so he's either going to move over here or over here, and if he moves right there, I knew that my knight could come over and get another check, and I'd be able to get some nastiness up here. And then you might not have noticed, but I've got these beautiful connected rooks, and one of them can just scoop over here, which is exactly how this went down. He moved over to this one, as I said, best move, knight over here for check again. This is kind of cool because I also have this as a potential move that's backed up, and if he ever blocks or puts his bishop over there, I'd be able to scoop it up. But we're getting, I think this is called an Arabian mate. You'll see it in a second. He does the best move of moving over here because he only has the 2 legal moves of either here or here. And if he went over there, I'd have another check and then be able to mate just right there. Now it says it's mate in 6. I scoot my rook over here, dropping it to mate in 5. The idea being that I can go right here for check. And then I had this all calculated out. My hands were kind of shaking. This was the last match of the tournament, and it puts me in contention to win it. But so if I go check, then he'd be forced to go over here, and then you got to be careful not to blunder the house by going there. I know my son wanted me to move over here because if he takes, then the rook would take the bishop for checkmate. So there's that way to mate. But what he did is he blocked right here. I went down here for check, knowing that he now only has 1 legal move of right here, and that is mate on the spot. So that was the one where I was playing against somebody older, but with no further playing around, let's go to the match against the 8-year-old little girl. And this was really, really crazy. Now, full disclosure, my son actually played against this girl, and he got a little overzealous, not using his time, and he actually got a loss against her in the first week, and he was pretty embarrassed. But I think that with this performance you're about to see, an 84 accuracy, it's really, there's no shame in losing to this girl, because 84 accuracy for an 8-year-old, that's 84% as good as the top engine move. So that's really, really crazy. And there was really only one boo-boo in the whole thing, but using her time a little bit better probably would have helped. But I knew that she had a very aggressive style, which you're about to see. So she starts out with d4. Whenever somebody hits me with a d4, they're going to be getting a King's Indian defense or a Grunfeld in response. And I start that off by bringing my knight out like this. So this is a Trompowsky attack, the idea being that she just immediately pins this and says, okay, I don't really like your knight being there, and I'm not really going to make great use of my dark squared bishop anyway. The thing that is important about this is that actually more or less stops a King's Indian defense, in the sense that it's not a great idea. King's Indian defense would be this pawn comes out here, and then you fianchetto your bishop into the corner here. But you don't really want to be doing stuff like that, because then you only have this pawn as the defender. And even though this queen also can add on to that that attack, you're leaving too many pieces revealed. Like, it's a little bit scary not having a pawn in front of your king that early in the game. But if you actually go into theory, you'll find out that that's actually a pretty common thing in a lot of different openings, especially like a Sicilian. You'll often find that sort of situation where you give up this e-pawn, but that's neither here nor there. The next move, I go into my training, another book move of bringing this pawn out here. That means my bishop can come out to play. It means a few different things, but the real main thing is I want to displace long term this d pawn by either I can go straight out with this pawn attacking that way, which it's a side pawn, it's a flank pawn, so central pawn's more important. The other idea is you could always crank your e pawn out here, maybe even support it with a knight after if you can find a way to get your bishop into play first, but that's too far in the future. So next up, this 8-year-old brings her knight out here to protect her bishop, and I still decide it's time to kick this bishop out of here. It's like, okay, if you want to trade, then you can go ahead and trade, but I'm not going to sit here with a bishop all up in my business, as they say. So best computer move. The nice thing is that this is defended twice, once by the rook, once by the pawn. She ends up dodging out to here, and I just basically ignore it and continue to prepare to fianchetto. And that's because I didn't really remember if it was okay to actually kick the bishop by putting it up too. I wanted to stick to theory that I was a little bit more familiar with, so I only went up one. But this is the thing that you need to know about learning chess, is that ultimately the computer's your teacher, but if it's teaching you to memorize moves that you completely don't understand, then that doesn't really help that much, and the advantage might be one that you wouldn't actually be able to recover from, because you won't be able to know the perfect play in the endgame. Anyway, so she decides to defend this pawn a little bit more, probably anticipating that this pawn's coming out, maybe with a fianchetto protecting the knight, allowing that to happen, and then my queen would probably come out, maybe on this diagonal after moving this pawn. Regardless, I fianchetto, which is apparently the best engine move. She moves out her bishop to basically prepare to castle, which king safety is very, very important. The engine wanted her to bring out the knight, but there's no obvious attackers. There's like basically none of these squares have too much going on, and my knight is protecting against those two anyway. So I end up saying there's plenty of time to do other shenanigans. So I make a threat to this pawn here, maybe. The idea being if she takes and takes, then this bishop is then pinned to the queen. The idea being that we can trade that way, but she castles to protect her king a little bit more. I move my bishop out here, which it doesn't like, but the idea is it was to pin the knight to the queen. So if she decides to move her knight to either of those two squares, I'd scoop up the queen. But really, it's doing the same sort of technique as the Trompowsky was trying to do in the first place against me, which is if they try to kick, then we end up just trading these two pieces. So she does this move, and this is where I learned to be more careful when I write down the moves for the game, because I ended up saying I just wrote down knight d2, and I thought it was this. And as I was punching in the game and I saw that, I'm like, she hung her queen and I didn't notice. No, she didn't do that. She's a good player. So she ended up moving her knight over here, and the idea being is that if I do take this knight, there's another one to take its place immediately, and the knight that was over here wasn't really doing much anything anyway. So it's a neat little trick, but it's time to quit being ridiculous and delaying castling and just go ahead and castle, which is the best engine move. She ends up taking the pawn. Now the thing is that when I take back, this bishop is covered by this pawn, which is cool, and that also gives an extra layer, including this knight in between it and the queen. So that means I wouldn't be able to force a queen trade, especially at the lower levels. I find that people really don't want to trade their queen, but once you've studied enough and found how openings work that include a queen trade, then you get less intimidated by playing that way. So best engine move, I take that, or revealing the attack on the bishop. It's just a little bit of pressure, but obviously there's no way that I'm going to make that trade. And she says it's time for your bishop to get out of here, and I say, oh yeah, well, I'm going to take this knight. So she takes back with the queen, which I did not know is the best move. I would have anticipated that taking with the knight would have been the best move. But I move my knight out here to continue developing. The other thing too is that this is an absolutely vital move, because if I take a look here, if I do something else, or even if I move, like if I leave that knight there, really is what I'm trying to say, then she'd be able to take my pawn and scoop up this rook, and there'd be pretty much nothing I could do about it. Like I could move my knight over here on another move, but then she's up a pawn, and then my queen would be defending the rook, but it's not a good situation. So that's why the engine says that that's the best move. Then she says, I'm sick of your knight, I'm going to go ahead and take it, and I take back with my bishop. And this is the game deciding blunder if you trust what the engine has to say, because this one I was calculating all sorts of things. I was like, okay, well, I think I'm going to take this pawn, putting pressure on this rook. I don't really want to move this knight away, because then that leaves this pawn completely free for the queen to take, and maybe I can kick this. But then I'm like, hey, wait a second, that knight is undefended, so I take it, and which is the best engine move. So thank goodness for that. I think that I could have been in a lot of trouble. If you see before that move, yeah, it was even. She had a 0.17 advantage, which for black, me playing as black, that's not bad for me to be around that. That's basically even. You start at a bit of a disadvantage as black anyway, but this gives me a 4.67 advantage once I do take that knight. She threatens the queen, which is the wrong move, because obviously the queen is able to go. Obviously she was probably a little bit flustered, but this pawn was basically free pickings, which I scooped up. And so she was smart enough to not make the same mistake of just threatening, because then I could scoop this pawn up as well. So she defends the pawn. The other option, as it says, is to move this up here. I can see why that has a bit more strength, but then the game must go on. So I end up being a little bit concerned about how she was likely to take this knight right here, and then if I take back with the pawn, she'd be free to take the pawn back. So I say I'd better defend this knight, even though it says that moving over here was a better move. I think that's for better scope, probably to be able to maybe move over here and target that pawn. And while forking, also putting pressure on this bishop. But she takes, I take back with the rook, because that way the rook is defended. If I didn't want my rook to sit there and babysit this pawn, so that's why I ended up using that rook to take which was the best engine move. Then she says, okay, I really don't like this queen sitting here, so she threatens, and I go, you know what, I am now up 4 points of material, so now let's trade off some queens and simplify the game, and basically give you less to work with for the rest of the match. She takes the bait, which apparently was the best engine move, so that's a good call for her. I take back with my pawn. Like, isn't this amazing? This is against an 8-year-old. She just absolutely just was. It's a stellar performance. I was so proud of her, even though she wasn't my kid. Anyway, so she recognizes the threat on this pawn from the bishop, even though I'm not really going to make that trade that way. But she's probably supporting a little bit more for maybe getting the rook over here. It's hard to say exactly what benefit that's supposed to have, but you can see the engine was screaming for taking up this free file right here. And that's basically a common motif that different masters will tell you to do, is if there is an open file, get a rook in there, because it just basically says it's off limits for pretty much anything, especially the king. So she moves her pawn out, and I go, all right, let's support this pawn right here, so I don't necessarily have to take with my rook. Also, if I do, then I just can do an even trade. She says, okay, well, this pawn is hanging with no defenders at all. And I'm like, well, what do I do at this point? You know, it's like I could try and mess around with some other stuff, but since this pawn, as I said a second ago, it's also doubled because there's a second pawn on that file, it makes most sense to just take it. It says it would have been better to push, probably to just, you know, mess up that structure even more. I'm not really crazy about that move, but, you know, engine knows best. So the H pawn takes the G pawn. Apparently that's the best engine move, and so obviously that means this is hanging here, and so I end up doing exactly what I expect. It was just to move my king out of the way, move my rook over there, so that's pinned. It can't take this or this, even if it does move up to fork. And also if I take, then that comes with check, basically getting one tempo ahead. Now, tempo I think is a ridiculous term. I think it should be just turn. You know, you get up by 1 turn, 2 turns, you know, so if you threaten a queen with no compensation, then it has to move away, losing a turn in a sense. So I think that makes more sense to use an English term instead of the Latin term tempo, and tempi for plural, so which that doesn't sound pretentious at all, does it? Anyway, so I move my king over here. She ends up threatening this pawn, and I'm like, there's no way I'm taking that because my rook would be undefended. I continue my attack over here, threatening this pawn and check in the process, which is also nice because that's on the same diagonal, so if it's delayed and I have the chance to take and take, you know, that's this rook is in a little bit of trouble for nowhere to go. So she supports this pawn, so I can't do that right off the bat, but of course it's still pinned, which means that if I move up this way, she's unable to take it. In other words, because the rook would be putting her in check. That's an illegal move, and so she ends up taking this pawn here because she's running out of options. Now I want to simplify the board even further, so I take the pawn that way. She takes back, I take back, so now each of us have one rook, and I'm just clear up a bishop, and I have one extra pawn. It's saying here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus 1, 2, 3, 4. So at this point you can see I'm up 5 pawns as far as an evaluation goes. She ends up moving to the 7th row for a couple reasons. One, she's likely to be able to scoop up this pawn over here for free. This one's covered by the bishop, so there's probably not much going on. But if these all vacate, then that comes with check. So it's, you know, it's a very decent move. But I continue my attack by taking this pawn, knowing that if she takes, I can take back, and that comes with check and all sorts of nastiness. Now, the computer, in its infinite wisdom, it's Stockfish is the name of the engine. You know, some people call it Codfish, and then the joke is Godfish because it's always right. It's got a ranking where it can beat Hikaru Nakamura and Magnus Carlsen, any of them, in its sleep, even though it doesn't have to sleep because it's a robot. Anyway, it's recommending the rook goes over here because then it's behind this passed pawn, so it can go straight up and be promoted to a queen, and there's not a whole lot my opponent can do about it. But I liked this idea. It was more fun anyway. So it also simplifies. She takes back, I take back with check, she moves over, and now I'm able to scoot over and protect my pawn while threatening this pawn as well. And the nice thing is I'd be able to take it, get check, as well as still continuing to defend my other pawn. She ends up saying, oh, well, I better defend that pawn. And that is another mistake because she missed my bishop was sitting there just waiting to scoop that up. So now it gets like even further into the end game, you know, leaving her with fewer pieces. I'm heading up to promote. She's doing a good job of protecting her pawn. This is great training that she clearly had, but with two pawns here, you know, like there's not going to be a whole lot she can do as far as that goes. I get my other queen. She takes over here. I do not. Apparently, I already have mate in two, but my nerves were also getting the best of me because I was going like, if I mess this up, I'm going to be really, really upset. But anyway, so this pawn takes right there because I'm like, okay, I don't care. I've got a queen and a rook. This bishop is sitting there as a spectator, and I don't really need more queens. I don't try to do the embarrassing things of trying to get like 7 queens or something like that. So that's why I try to, you know, end it as efficiently as I could. I think I got down to 6 minutes on this game, so I was really using my time. I think she only used about 3 minutes of her time out of the 25, the whole thing, but it was also getting close to bedtime because she was 8. So like respect and kudos for being up that late, because like this would have been like after 9 o'clock, you know, by this point anyway. So she finds the best move, hiding over here. I moved this up here so that it's defended by the bishop and I can stop thinking of it. And apparently the best move was to bring my queen over here. She finds this, which is the best move, but I move over here for check. And she best moves over here. I go check with my queen. She moves over here, check, and then I cover. I found the best move. Okay, that's cool. Check right there, mate in 2. She moves over here. I go check right there. She moves over there because she could only go here or here. I remember that was the only time she tried to do an illegal move. She tried to move over here from right there, and that's no good. And then the rook comes down for check. So wherever you are, give this 8-year-old a round of applause. She did a fantastic job with her 84.1 performance. But that's what I've got for you today as far as some games to review. Both of my accuracies were over 90. So I guess I did a few things right, so that's pretty great. If you want to see more stuff like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, the big ugly one down there, so those deadbeats at YouTube start paying for these videos instead of me. I think that'd be amazing. Now, of course, the other thing I should mention is that this video is sponsored by Cardinal Financial Consulting, and they will help with whatever your fund is. If you're building a hedge fund, basically, if you need audited financials for your investors and whatnot, they're people to see. And I've got a much cleverer way to share that, which is with this ad right here. But I'll see you next time. Thanks.
My background has been in alternative investments for the past 20 years. I've seen just about every type of fund, worked on the accounting and operations side, and even at some of these big banks that I worked for, worked on a lot of projects behind the scenes to really hone my craft and, create Cardinal Financial Consulting and help people set up the right structures, handle the accounting and operations behind the scenes, and really take that away from the CEO's responsibility to make their lives streamlined. Sorry.
Oh, hey there. I hope you enjoyed the show. And if you are into chess, if you play chess and you're an investor of some sort, real estate or otherwise, well, you can be on the show too. I know, right? All you have to do is connect with me on LinkedIn. My name's Dan Friedenberg, so I'm super duper easy to find on LinkedIn, where I spend most of my social media time. But if you're one of those people who just don't play chess, don't pay attention to him. I don't judge. All you have to do is go to dandoesdeals.com and you'll find the Chance Encounter series where you're welcome to be a guest on it, where you can share your core competencies that you're likely to contribute to a GP team or a JV. You don't have to be doing syndications. And we'll talk about your buy box and stuff like that. It's easy peasy. It's like 15 minutes long to record, and there are no real fastball questions. Just tell the truth, and everybody will be fine. And if that's not really your thing, dandoesdeals.com. It also has the way to meet more, join more people, add more people to your investor list, your different deal sponsor operators and KPs and passive investors, all that kind of stuff. I'm probably repeating myself, but I'll give you the rest of your day. I appreciate you watching Chess with Investors. See you next time. Bye.